It is also interesting to just kind of recognize as a consumer, it can be so overwhelming. What are the key messages that we're trying to send out and tell customers because there is so much noise? The story is there. It's working through that storytelling with the influencer and providing them with the information so they can educate the audience too, right?
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Culture Creators with Linqia. My name is Liz Griffin, a senior brand partner here. And today I am joined by the senior influencer manager of Cetaphil and Differin, Rachel Lambo. Hey Rachel, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so happy that you are on today to kind of talk to us a little bit more about cultural relevancy and everything that's unique to your role and really kind of the industry. So I guess before we really jump in, let's talk a little bit about yourself. Tell us your career trajectory. Tell us what you do today on Cetaphil and Differin, and just kind of let us get to know you.
Yeah, I mean, I started, and just for background, I got a degree in advertising design. So I worked in advertising for a little bit, and I was like, okay, I'm not too crazy about it. So I switched kind of over into a little bit of IT, marketing, and that was also a little bit of a swirl. And then I kind of got into CPG by just like a friend of a friend. And then I've been in like beauty CPG for like the longest time. So I've kind of had various roles from digital lead marketer to marketing director, to consultant, marketing coordinator. So I've kind of done a little bit of all the gamuts. Yeah, exactly.
You've
working
worn all
my
the
way.
Hats.
Exactly.
Okay.
Learning a little bit about everything in the business. And then I think my role currently with Cetaphil and Differin, leading influencer and activations and mega brands, has kind of been a really interesting trajectory for me because I've kind of worked in this event space. I've worked in marketing, brand strategy, and then working with influencers specifically is really part of a big brand strategy, generally speaking. I think a lot of people think it's just like influencer. Mm-hmm. We're just always having fun, but there's got to be some clear indications of what you're trying to say, what the key messages are, and how you want the influencer to really understand and tell the story to their audience, right? And so there's a lot of elements involved in not just the fun influencer part and the parties and the events, but how do we actually convey our messages across the various platforms and the different consumer subsets as well. So that's been really, really interesting.
What would you say is your favorite part of your role today?
I think my favorite part is I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It's definitely meeting some of these celebrities and influencers in person.
That would be my answer too.
Yeah. And you know what? The craziest part about that is that they're so nice. Like all of them are like, most people think, oh my gosh, you're going to have an influencer. It's going to be, you never know what you're going to get out of it. But my experience in this role and just generally, I've always met like the loveliest people, and you really don't know much about them. You think you know about them when you see their content online, but it's like 1% of their reality,
of who they
right?
are,
yeah, of who they are. And it's really fun to meet them, and they tell you a little bit about their lives and their families and their stories, and it's really incredible how influencer has impacted people's lives for the positive. Like people are like, I can send my cousin to college, I can do this, I can retire my mother. It's really fun getting to know them on a personal level as well, and just connecting with them from a brand perspective too. And a lot of influencers, what the cool thing about it is that they are also very much like excited to meet someone from the brand and have that conversation and say, I've been using Cetaphil for 10 plus years. And I'm like, oh, that's amazing. So it's really incredible.
Yeah, I think when they start to develop that personal relationship with the brand and they see the people behind the brand, it really helps personalize it. I've heard that quite a bit from creators. So I love that you've seen that too. Kind of jumping into culture creators, right? So I feel like we obviously hear a lot about the algorithms on all of the different social platforms, and they are super personalized, as we know. But for you as a marketer, how do you feel like you truly work to understand what is culturally relevant to your particular targets and audiences for both of those different products?
I think it's looking at who our audience is, who we're trying to have a conversation with. and understanding also what the key messages we're trying to transfer into the cultural relevancy. So how do we take something that's going viral and then make it our own so people can kind of catch on? It's kind of like that idea when Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift announced their engagement, right? So we took two core products, one core product, one new product, and kind of supported that engagement and like kind of coming up with our own way of doing that on our organic channel.
I love that. That's
right?
so smart. Yeah, okay.
So yeah, it's just like figuring out ways of making that work and just having that conversation and moving at a speed of light too. So really having the bandwidth from a internal perspective and then also agency perspective to work in partnership with creators, or even just creating internal organic content that can be really relevant, but still engaging to the audience. And then how does it also relate to our brand? Because I think you can jump on so many trends. There's so many things happening all the time, from documentaries to Netflix episodes. How do you like find the relatability, right? So finding what's culturally relevant to the brand and what we can execute and what is authentic as well is really, really important.
Do you have a particular like type of process that you guys use? I feel like you have some brands that actually do lean in on every trend, and they have kind of created the right to do so in the way that they can win by doing that and leaning in. There's also other brands that do it and it's so inauthentic, and clearly they get called out in the comments across the board,
sure.
right? But even at just like, maybe not even in particular to your brands, but just as a marketer, how do you see it, and how do you think the best way is to kind of cut through the noise and figure it out?
Knowing your brand and knowing who your brand is and how people perceive your brand, right? So I think there's a lot of opportunity to take advantage of studies like Nielsen numerator reports, Mintel, like using that and really understanding where your brand is actually standing in terms of views and perspective of the audience that you're and your customer that you're selling to, and then really understanding your core values and your equities, and then saying, okay, this is something that we're willing to lean into. This is what we're not willing to lean into. I think when you don't know who you are or your fundamentals, you struggle to just kind of run on every trend, and then you don't necessarily have like a framework or rubrics to say, okay, this is what we are, who we are, what we are, and this is how we identify with these trends, and these make sense for us.
I love that. I mean, because at the core, that is fundamentally staying true to who you are at the heart of your brand, and that really keeps that authenticity intact. What about just thinking kind of beauty, skincare, right? I mean, there are so many different trends that are all popping on different platforms all at the same time. What, like, how do you guys, do you just use like a combination of social listening and other tools, or like, how do you kind of keep up with everything that's happening?
I think social listening is huge. Obviously, having an agency that helps is also great.
Of course.
And also just identifying and saying really quickly, hey, this is a trend that we're seeing, but hey, it's not for us, or it is for us, right? Yeah. And I think when you look at other beauty brands and skincare brands, sometimes they do, like you said, sometimes it's very authentic, sometimes it's very inauthentic. And so when you understand what you're looking for and what you're trying to do, then you can start filtering through a lot of that noise, because it's just always something going on, always something happening. You can't jump on every trend, but you can really identify what could work best for the audience and who we are and what we stand for.
I think being in your industry would be so fun though with social, especially because I'm obsessed with skincare, beauty. You asked my husband, I spend way too much money at the different stores to buy all of these things.
Right.
And it does become so overwhelming, everything that you see on social, and this influencer telling me to do this type of skincare routine or use this product, etc. But I think at the end of the day, I think it's a really fun industry segment that you're working in. So
I mean, if you see my closet, I have like in my bathroom, I have so much product. I had a friend come by last week, and he had like needed some face product. We had just gone out, and he's like, "Whoa, that's a big closet full of products." I was like, yes.
Like not shoes, or also shoes, but and all the skincare.
Oh, I have about 70 pairs of shoes. And so I think that's sort of like where I'm at. But yeah, it is a really fun category to work in. It is also interesting to just kind of recognize as a consumer, it can be so overwhelming, right? And what are we trying to do? Are we trying to help people simplify their skincare routine? Are we trying to explain to them why our product is more superior than others in the product? What are the key messages that we're trying to send out and tell customers, because there is so much noise and there's so many people, so many brands, so many steps, right? Do you need a 12-step routine? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't even
think
use
so
it.
either.
Yeah,
I don't
12
either.
steps is crazy. Like it's like, do you need that? Do you need maybe just the basics, like a good face wash, a moisturizer with SPF, and a regular moisturizer you use at night, right? So like, what do you need? And so the story is there. It's working through that storytelling with the influencer and providing them with the information so they can educate the audience too, right?
Yeah.
But it's just, it can be very overwhelming. And even for myself as a consumer, when I go into a drugstore or, like a Sephora, I am overwhelmed with the amount of makeup and hair products and perfumes and everything else. And sometimes I literally have to like go in with a mission to like write everything down that I need, because I will leave with something that I'm not supposed to be leaving
That's
with.
some discipline. I don't have that. I had to learn.
I had to learn. Like I have so much
I will get
makeup.
there one day.
Yeah, one day you'll get there. I promise. You'll
Probably
get there.
not. Okay, so yes, there's a lot of trends that are going on in this industry. Yes, it's like really fun. You obviously run influencer marketing as well. And so I can imagine that you probably get tagged, DM'd, you have all the influencers just kind of talking about your products already organically. Like, how do you, on the influencer side, kind of sort through, again, the noise and identify like who would be a good partner and a good fit?
I think one of the things when you're looking for influencers, and I think even if influencers are watching this at some point, is just be yourself, be authentic. Don't try to do something that you're not. Be you, because I think that really comes across. I can look at an influencer's page and scroll maybe 3 grids down and watch 2-3 reels to kind of understand who they are. And then obviously you have to look through the metrics as well. But it tells me like very quickly that this person is authentic. They love what they do and they deliver on the storytelling that they want to tell their audience, right? And so I think that's some of the key elements that I look at.
Yeah.
And I also like when influencers are themselves, like you can see their quirks and who they are. And you know what? I think sometimes I have heard from some influencers that, I don't know if I should share this or overshare. Just be yourself. If you feel like this is, if you want to do that, do it because you think it's authentic to you. I think when things can kind of get a little bit diluted is like you're seeing an influencer doing one thing and you're like, maybe I should do that too because it's getting them the reach or the impressions or the followers or the engagement, right? I think when you talk about the clutter or the volume of influencers that I work with in a year, I do have help from an agency partner. So they do help. We do give them outlines and criteria of what we're looking for various campaigns. So depending on the campaign, I have different criteria. Sometimes I'm looking for, Gen Z lifestyle or beauty or skincare or maybe acne storytelling. So the plethora of people is so open that I'm always touching different type of influencers, but it is with criteria and some guardrails just because there's just so much. And I'm also interested in learning about new influencers, people that I haven't discovered. I think I cannot just rely on my own bubble because I consume different content. So it is important to have so many different diverse views and people on the team to help with that too, because then it allows you to really get exposed to different people. I mean, my For You page generally is just a little bit a swirl because it's just, I look at so much content all the time that's not necessarily related to my interests. But
yeah. Mine is too. I'll do research for any of our clients or like prospective new clients, and then that totally changes my entire For You. So it's like,
Absolutely.
wait a minute. A couple of random questions just from that piece. So first, when you think about like you were talking about briefing the different creators, do you, as a marketer or even just for your brand, how do you look at like Instagram and TikTok? Do you brief creators differently for the platforms, or do you try to do different types of content for those audiences, or do you typically like work with a creator and have them just cross post that video? How do you view that?
Sometimes we do cross posting as one. Sometimes we do influencer TikTok first or Instagram first, native, depending on where their reach and their audience is. So if they do have a higher reach at TikTok and the engagement is really strong, and the audience size or the age group that we're trying to talk to is really strong, then we do really focus on that native platform that they are relatively performing better on versus the other. But sometimes we find that there are people that do really well on both platforms. So we do ask them to sort of syndicate to the other channels as well. But it's a combination depending on what we're doing and the objective of the campaign or the tentpole that we're working on. We have a mix of strategies that we kind of implement.
Yeah. Okay, great. That makes a lot of sense. And then what would you say when you're, I guess, kind of working with creators, what has probably been the most challenging part of the process for you?
Ooh, that's sometimes it's just like talking to the creator or seeing their content and they're sort of reading it off, right? So that happens sometimes, and you see that even when you're watching content. And we always say, like, please talk in your own language. If you hit some of the key points, great. You don't have to read it verbatim, right? And I think that's one of the things that we want to have even in the selection process is like finding influencers that can tell a story, their story, and incorporate products in there, right? And I am a sucker for this. Liz, I don't know about you, but I have bought lots of things on Instagram and TikTok Shop.
It's a problem.
And it is a problem.
I think there's a common thread here. We spend just too much money on random stuff.
Yes, exactly. And so I think that there is power in that, right? And finding the creators. But the challenge is also finding the art between that. Sometimes creators are nervous because they get to work with a brand that they haven't worked with before and they want to continue that relationship. So I think there's this element of like, you know, trying to perform and meet the standard that the brand is looking for, but then also staying true to their storytelling and their way of telling that story and having that conversation. So I think it's a little bit of both, but I think throughout the challenge of like walking through a creator through that and then briefing them, it's usually like very, very faint. Like it doesn't last long. They come back and they're like, okay, thanks for like walking me through this or, you know, giving us a little bit more feedback. But usually it's a pretty smooth process. I mean, they are very busy people. I think a lot of times from a consumer perspective who doesn't work in the industry, they think influencers have this very fabulous life. They work a lot.
Yeah, they're hustling. I mean, if you can build an empire truly like that on your own, the confidence that you and the ability to try to not care. I know you are going to care at some level of what people are saying and thinking about you, but the ability to put yourself out there the way that they do over and over and over and like trial by fire, quite literally, to where you get to a point that you can sustain everything, I think is so amazing.
It's like failing fast, right? And saying, okay, this video didn't work very well. I have no comments here. And then this next video works really well.
Yeah.
And then it works really well. And then you're seeing sort of that trajectory, the growth and the opportunities open up. And like I have some influencers that, you know, I've met at events that have come and I said to them, listen, I'm only one of thousands of brands, but there are other people watching. So keep doing the work that you're doing. Don't stop.
It's funny that you brought up when you can tell that they're reading and it's like they're just trying so hard to hit it and it's like, you don't know. I sometimes just want to be like, what brand gave you that PTSD that you feel like you can't like just be yourself and show up and just like have that. And you're right though. Like they're trying to do a really good job, make the brand happy, hit the performance metrics because as you mentioned, there are other people that are going to be watching it. Talk to me about how so for a very long time, and I feel a lot of brands are starting to lean into what I'm about to say more, but for a lot, like forever, it's really been like letting social have all the fun, right? And like that's where you spend a lot of money, you have this really great influencer content, but at the end of the day, we're starting to see brands really take this influencer content and use it outside of the social ecosystem, right? So now we're seeing creators on TV, on the billboards, obviously you've already talked about events. What does that signal to you as a marketer?
I think it signals that creators, influencers, or what we used to call them bloggers years ago, are having a lot more impact than we estimated years ago. I think they are the voice, and I think Do you remember MTV?
Of course I remember MTV.
MTV, I'm aging myself here. MTV was it. You would get from school back and you'd watch the music videos.
100%. Yeah, Downtown Julie Brown. Like
right.
I remember all of them. Yes.
Right. And so like now people are creating their own little MTVs, their own little worlds, right? And I think there's so much power in seeing creators create series arcs, and you like all you want to do is watch those, and then you see them evolve into these TV personalities or actors or entrepreneurs or whatnot. And it's so great to see that because there's so much power. And I think media has been democratized, or I think you would call it that way, in terms of ensuring that creators can now participate and really create a message. And I think it's also like proof of, there's a lot of proof in that there's consumers that are really interested in this point of view or this perspective or this way of doing things. And so I think there's like brands are now getting sort of like free research, essentially saying, okay, well, this creator is talking about my product authentically, and people are like, oh my God, I love this product. Oh yeah, I didn't know you could use this product this way or that way. And I think it allows this like opportunity for creators to tell stories, and really build out an opportunity to like take their following, their audience, and really apply that influence that they have, right, in really manageable or like even interesting storytelling arcs that you can then take off outside of the social media platform. So I think there's so much opportunity in that. And I think I've worked with some influencers that I've seen on TV and then just kind of grow into other things. And it's so fun to see that.
Yeah.
And we're still partners with a lot of them, and they're always like, I would call them and say, hey, you know, would you be able to do this? They're like, yes, of course.
Oh, I love that. That's
right.
great.
And so it's really incredible when you build these relationships with influencers. And that's why I always say when I meet influencers that I can't necessarily work with because there's no synergy right now, for example, I always say to them, don't stop working on what you do. Keep going, because I am watching, a lot of other influencer managers from different brands are watching. We are just waiting for you to maybe hit that next cusp, that next level. Yeah. So don't give up. But I think generally speaking, when I see creators, influencers really becomes mega stars, essentially, it's really fun to watch. It's really inspirational too. And it's also incredible to recognize that there's such a big following. And so how do you take that opportunity? How do you take that following to send a message of like what your key messages are for the brand through that influencer, through that creator, right?
To your point, they are so impactful. It is really becoming a C-suite discussion too, right? It's in the boardroom. It's how are we going to get a creator at the table, or just like you're saying, just on the plan in general. And I think it also goes back to the point around people do trust creators, just like your friend who walks into your closet to get skincare, trust your recommendation more so than like just the brand itself. And so there's just different points of view, I believe, than just the brand's point of view, which I think is great, which I feel like also leads into where a lot of influencer marketing professionals can start to struggle. But let's talk about the metrics and how we are talking about the impact. So what do you feel like from a KPI, like metrics standpoint, what do you think actually matters, whether you're measuring just like cultural or influencer impact?
I think it depends on the objective, right? Yeah. So if you think of the marketing funnel, which we're all fully aware of, brand awareness, consideration, and conversion, it depends what you're trying to do. So I think mega influencers are really good at being brand ambassadors, like the awareness, they have the reach, they can really tell the story. They might not always be the best conversion driving influencers sometimes, but they are the brand awareness, right? I think nanos, micro influencers are really great for conversion. They're fantastic.
Yeah.
And they are sort of larger numbers. But depending on the objective, I think that will determine the KPIs. I think if you say, I have the standard of KPI that I need to hit every single time, I think you're not going to necessarily be able to measure success, because each of the areas of the funnel have different outcomes and KPIs, I think, associated to that. If you want to say overall, sure, we can have a general baseline to say, okay, what does success look like?
Yeah.
But I think when I look at just individual post content or contracted content that I would work with somebody I'm paying for. I think engagement rate is important. It might not be as important as it was like 2-3 years ago. Maybe views and impressions are a lot more important, depending on the brand, and depending on the objective again.
Yeah.
So, but views, impression, engagement, share outs, perhaps even clicks if there's an affiliate component included, like an LTK or Shop My, or front of stores that Amazon, Walmart, and even CVS and all the other retailers are doing now, is what other components are there. So I think there's a lot of different areas depending on the size of the brand and the objective, but those are some of the elements that I would be looking at for sure.
Yeah, no, I think that's all right on the head for sure. I feel like a lot of my clients are still talking about engagement rates. The views obviously is a big piece of that. Impressions, yes. And again, it really does depend on just the overarching objective that they're looking to achieve. So what about, let's kind of talk about budget. So what percent of total marketing budgets do you think brands are spending on influencer marketing? And then what percent do you think they should be spending?
You know what? Every brand is different. So I think some smaller beauty brands or skincare brands have to lean heavily into that because they may not have the retail support or that they don't have the distribution reach. So I think they could be spending a lot more of their marketing budget.
A lot more on the influencer piece. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because they're really driving, especially if they have a direct-to-consumer component where people can go to their Shopify site, purchase something. It's like click, you're done, check out, right?
Yeah.
But I think if it's for a larger brand, some more legacy brands or mid-sized brands, I think it should be between, or at least I would hope that they would be spending 10 to 17, 20% of their marketing budget on influencer. I don't know. I mean, it's changed so much, right? I think years ago, people spent 5 or 10%. They're like, oh, let's just throw a little bit of money at that.
Yep.
But now I think it's such a big part of people's strategy because this is how consumers are consuming content.
Absolutely.
It used to be TV, radio, billboards, newspaper, still exist. But now there's this other element in there where people are on their phones a lot and they are consuming content that they want to seek out or look for. And so I think that needs to be part of the media mix and the marketing mix, generally speaking.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I think it's a really good point when you're talking about some of the smaller brands too. It's also that part around how consumers are searching on these platforms and discovering new products, that it makes sense for a brand new product kind of breaking through into the market. How do you go bigger there with the budgets that you do have? What would you say? So let's talk about some of the larger brands that, ideally should hopefully be spending 10, 17, 20% of their marketing budget on influencer. What would you think is preventing brands from spending more on influencer marketing if they're below that threshold?
I think it's education for C-suite for sure.
Yeah.
I think maybe not making them, but giving them an understanding that they can relate to, right? I think I was in a sort of conversation with different people from different brands, CPG, food, service related influencer managers. And one of the people said that I think the biggest challenge for them was really explaining to the C-suite what this is, right, in context to the company and where they're sitting at in the org chart, right? And I think one of the things that she had said was the moment it clicked for the CEO was when their daughter, who's 17, kind of explained to his dad that this is how things work. And so there's this relative experience that needs to happen sometimes with the C-suite and the boardroom or the directors, because it's just not, it doesn't necessarily register because they don't necessarily are the target audience, right? So sometimes you get a lot of the C-suite, they're not the target audience. Right. I am not speaking to you.
Right.
So you are not going to see it being relevant, but your child or your grandkids may think that this is exactly how they want to be spoken to. So bridging the gap between, hey, you're not the audience, but I want you to understand so that you can understand how this audience consumes content. Yeah. And you may not, it just may not be like, I don't consume content like that, but that's really not who we're talking to, right? So
yeah, I think it's a
bridging
really good point.
and I think it's also like that conversation, like, well, you get sometimes, like I heard one of the people in that room say, my CEO came in and was very upset that this other brand is doing this. And it's like, well, that's also another fuel in the fire, right? Is when you see your competitor doing these things, then you see the importance of that. But then now you have to build a rubric, a system in place to kind of build this program so that you know what you're actually asking for. Because I think a lot of things can go very haywire when you're not sure about what you're requesting from an influencer campaign when you're trying to run it, or even an always on campaign. So it is really important to sometimes have these conversations, but I think that's one of the experiences I've seen myself and just heard from other marketers as well.
Yeah, I was saying, I think it's funny that you bring up going home and asking whether it's your children, your grandchildren, or whoever. I have heard that so many times from people that it's like, oh, I was talking to my son and they were telling me about this. And like, that is what helps inform a lot of things. So thank goodness for those people. The other thing you just mentioned, sorry, I'm going to kind of go a little off here. You said always on. I feel like that is something over the past 8 to 12 months, I've been hearing so much more from especially large brands as they want an always on creator strategy. What does always on mean to you?
Always on means always on.
Literally,
literally creating content for either your core products or your newer products or innovations that you have, and really being at the forefront of the minds of consumers and being a part of the conversation. And the conversation could be just like you're part of a body care routine, you're part of a routine, you're part of a lifestyle in someone's content. And it doesn't necessarily always have to look like these really massive campaigns. It could really be just this like being added into it, like a series of other things, right? But being present, being there. And so when people think of like, hey, I need to buy a new cleanser, oh, I need to buy a new setting spray. I already know what setting spray I'm going to buy because I see it everywhere and I buy that setting spray. Just example. Yeah. But you know what I mean? So I think Always On talks about the idea of being on top of mind for the customer and also ensuring we're building relationships long-term with influencers and creators and ensuring that that is something that's really cemented in there. Because you see certain brands that they are always constant, right? They're not going anywhere. They're either promoting a staple category product that is number one, number two, or they're really bringing innovation out there. And I think when you're always on, it's so much easier bringing in new products, right? Because you already have created this sort of constant strategy there. Yeah. And then when you bring in a new product, innovation, it's so much easier to kind of like have that conversation because you've already built that sort of baseline. Yeah.
So do you utilize a mix of like new creators, or do you try to work with creators in like an ambassador style relationship, or both?
Well, we do a little bit of both. Maybe we don't call them ambassadors, but certainly making sure that we also have new people coming in. There's always new creators, new influencers, new storytellers. I think it's important to ensure that you're not just having, the same people telling the same story, because the reality is you're going to hit fatigue, right? And so you kind of go through the motions of ensuring that you have a balance of new people and also existing partnerships that you have.
Awesome. Well, we're actually going to get to the part that I find is the most fun of the series, which is a rapid fire series of questions. So, and these can be, these are more personal. So first, what does your For You page look like?
It is full of glittery dresses, ab workouts, like cuts, because I'm going through a workout cut, and we talked about that.
Yep.
And shoes, lots of shoes and handbags, and that's pretty much it.
Oh, that's hilarious. You are definitely my kind of girl. If you were a creator, what would your content angle be?
That is so funny that you say that. So I started to DJ, And all my
Oh my gosh, I
yes.
love this.
So all my friends and even influencers that I know, they're like, Rachel, please start posting your DJ sets online. Let's do something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that probably would be my angle. DJ and fashion, like what I would wear before I go on a DJ set. That I think that would be my
Almost
thing.
like a get ready with me to go DJ.
Yes, it would be
Oh my
something
gosh, I
like
love
that.
it.
Yes.
Okay, I love that.
that.
What advice would you give to someone starting their career in marketing?
Try things. Don't limit yourself because you know what, marketing is so vast. You can be in brand strategy, you can work in events strategy, you can work in so many areas of marketing. Marketing is so beautiful, it's so versatile. You could do one thing tomorrow and then do something completely different the other end. I mean, I've talked to so many people that are CMOs throughout my career, and sometimes you find out that they didn't even study marketing. They studied business, or they studied something super random. So I think be open, be willing to learn. I think the more you learn, it's easier just to kind of, the lift is so much faster when you're doing projects and have opportunities to do this. Like, I think for myself, if I were to just think about myself 15 years ago when I started out, I think I look at it and say, I've learned so much, but now the lift for me when I'm working on these huge projects is so much easier because I've just done so many things.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're a testament to trying things. Like, you started at the top of this call with all of the different positions and roles that you've done. And so I think it is a true testament of, you know, kind of where it can take you when you try those new things and really figure out your sweet spot and what you truly love to do.
Yeah.
I love that. I kind of, just looking back on our conversation, one thing that has stood out to me from you throughout this conversation that I really respect and enjoy is your love and encouragement for creators, and how you're kind of like always telling them, just keep going, be you. I think that's so important in this industry. I know what we were talking about. You don't know what they're experiencing with other brands, other people, and they are hustling in their roles. So I think it's amazing that is the way that you choose to approach it. And I think that's wonderful. I have enjoyed tremendously kind of learning more from you today and really understanding kind of how you look at things that are culturally relevant and what you've been doing on both of these brands. So thank you so much for being here and taking the time to do this with us.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
This was such a pleasant conversation, and just generally speaking, I think that this is a space that's just going to keep growing.
Oh yeah.
You know, and it's going to keep changing and evolving. And I think I'm really excited to see how that evolves even further next year and the year after. But thank you so much for having me on here, and this was a really fun conversation.
So glad for it.